In this article, I will use data that is difficult to find in the public domain, but is accessible to AI. If you don't believe that various chatbots conspired with each other just to mock modern culture, then this shouldn't be a big problem for you. I wrote in more detail about how I checked the data from AI at the end of the text version of this article in the corresponding section. Let's talk about the impact of the number of sexual partners a woman has, body count, on the strength of the marriage she will have. I want to independently verify the relevance of some statements that can be heard in the media space in the field of relations between a man and a woman. This topic interests me as part of a larger topic: stability and prosperity of Western society. Let me say right away, I am deeply interested in the prosperity of Western civilization and the protection of the cultural heritage that it has carried around the world for the past 500 years. The current cultural trends that are advancing in the West confuse me in this sense. When I was collecting statistics for this article on marriage in the United States, I also collected similar data for other European countries. I will say right away that the situation in the United States is bad with a trend towards terrible, but for example, the situation in Sweden is catastrophic with a trend towards extinction. And all of this is a consequence of the modern degenerative ideology that the mainstream media manipulatively calls progressive. More about the current state of Sweden. Average body count of Swedish women under 30, 8, 10, median 5, 6. Divorce rate, 47%, one of the highest in Europe. 40% of women 40 plus in Sweden do not have children. Among educated women in Sweden aged 40 plus, up to 48% are childless due to careers, feminist trends. Trend. Each new generation of Swedish women gives birth to fewer children than the previous one. Almost half of the current generation has refused to have children. I provide this information to make it clear that the increased body count in Western countries is not a phenomenon detached from a degenerative culture, but is a direct consequence of it. I use the term degenerative culture not to offend anyone, but simply because the definition of this word fully corresponds to the consequences we observe from this culture. The meaning of the term degeneration. A degenerative process in a biological species, e.g., wolves, bees, humans, or other animals, is an evolutionary or epigenetic breakdown that leads to loss of adaptive qualities, decreased vitality, and the survival capacity of the species. So we have a definition of what a degenerative process is in biological species, and we have my claim that modern mainstream culture is degenerative. Is this statement true? If so, then we should see in the Swedish indigenous ethnic group in reality 1, a loss of adaptive qualities, 2, a decrease in vitality, and 3, the ability to survive. Thus, we are really seeing how the population of a biological species, the indigenous Swedish ethnic group, is declining. From this, I draw a logical conclusion that what happened is 1, a decrease in the viability, and 2, the survival ability of the species in the Swedish indigenous ethnic group. That is, what we observe in reality corresponds to what is called a degenerative process in biological species. Well, the fact that this degenerative process is connected to the propaganda of a degenerative culture is self-evident. I have only scientifically confirmed my right to call the current mainstream culture in Sweden degenerative. We see that the trend in Sweden is aimed at the extinction of the indigenous ethnic group. This is what happens when an ethnic group decides to play the game of fuck around and find out with biology and nature. Now, the country of Sweden is in the fuck around stage. In 2050 to 60, Sweden will be in the find out stage, when the new population of this country will rename the country to the Islamic Republic of Sweden. Why am I wasting my time talking about Sweden now? Because it is the destination where the United States is now heading. 1990, U.S. women 40 plus, 9% without children. 2020, U.S. women 40 plus, 18% without children. 2035, forecast, U.S. women 40 plus, 35% childless. And where the U.S. is heading is not the situation a normal person in the U.S. wants to be in. 2. Body count and divorce in the USA. Now let's return to the topic of this article: body count and divorce in the USA. USA probability of divorce, depending on length of marriage. Over 10 years, 38%. In 20 years, 45-50%. Over 30 years, up to 60%. This is widely known information on social media. It is known that the probability of divorce is approximately 50%. That is, the probability of a coin toss decides whether a marriage will be successful or not. Of course, pragmatic men, noticing this figure, ask themselves a reasonable doubt. Why should I risk all my financial assets that I will bring into the marriage for the sake of a blind chance? My research gives these men more hope than meets the eye. So question number one, is the probability of divorce always 50%? Answer, no. 3. Probability of divorce depending on body count. Table 1. Body count versus divorce statistics. Women 20 to 30 years old, USA. Here's what I think looking at this table. 1. The correlation between body count and the risk of divorce is obvious and confirmed. 2. In the categories that I marked in green, we see a much reduced probability of divorce. Even the group body count 3 to 5 gives only 31% of divorces, which is already interesting. That is, the strength of such a marriage is 69%. 3. The 11-plus group is almost a guaranteed disaster. 4. The number of divorces from the 11-plus group is strikingly disproportionate compared to other groups. Okay, we've established that for a strong marriage, a man should look for a woman with a body count of less than 5. First, let's find out what the average body count of a U.S. woman at this age is. 9.8 partners. But it's not really that bad. In statistics, the average is not always representative, so there is an auxiliary calculation system that cuts off extremes, the median system. Simply put, it is more accurate than just the average. U.S. body count for women 20 to 30 years old. Median, 6.0 partners. Average, mean, 9.8 partners. This is better, but it doesn't really change anything. If we look at the table, it's the 6 to 10 group that has a 45% divorce risk, as everyone knew before. So what's the point of this article? Just repeating what everyone already knows? No. I built a table that's more interesting than what's usually shown on social media. And most likely you've never seen a table like this before. Table 2. Body count versus divorce statistics. Women 20 to 30 years old, USA. What has changed? Added a column showing the number of these women in the US as a percentage. Data was taken from social surveys. Here's what I think looking at this table. 1. This is a revealing screenshot of the sexual culture of women in US society in 2020. 2. I see that the risk categories, safe green and dangerous red, are divided in the country almost in half. That is, in the USA, 55% of women with a body count less than 5, 45% of women with a body count more than 5. Half of U.S. women, even in today's degenerative mainstream culture, retain a traditional view of sex, relationships, and do not want to participate in hookup culture that, in my opinion, even this knowledge justifies my time spent on processing the numbers. That is, this green category is a Klondike for relationships, marriage, and a healthy society. And this category is quite significant. That is, the USA has not yet passed the point of no return in the demographic catastrophe. 3. I will conditionally call the two problem groups in the red category as follows. 6 to 10. People who are free from intelligent partner selection, sexually undisciplined. 11 plus. People who are free from shame, morally irresponsible. 4. It is obvious that the 11-plus group is responsible for most of the degenerate content in social media on the topic of dating/relationship/marriage, because only representatives of this group, the so-called modern women, can have enough quantitative experience to keep a continuous sex journal and social media about all their endless partners. It is obvious that if the 3 to 5 group wanted to keep such a sex journal, their channel would be limited to 3 to 5 videos. But we observe in the degenerate sector of TikTok, for example, channels with hundreds of videos. It is not difficult to guess where the author of this channel got so much experience for discussion. 5. Again, I would like to draw your attention to the fact that the 11-plus group has the absolute majority of divorces compared to other groups. But the most important thing is the answer to the question I asked earlier. What is the probability that a man in the USA will find a woman from the green category at the age of 20 to 30? The answer is 55%. This is the share of women in the USA from the green category. That is, every second one. These are definitely optimistic figures for those who thought that everything was lost. But even this knowledge is not enough to correctly assess your chances of meeting such a girl. You also need to look at the statistics for each US state separately, which I will do later, but for now I want to discuss the existing problem with the 11 plus group. 5. The 11 plus group is the spoiler of marriage statistics for the entire country. The average divorce rate in the US is 45 to 50%, 20 to 30 years of marriage, or a lifetime. I was guided by average statistics for the United States, CDC, GSS, sociological surveys, where divorce rates fluctuate at 40 to 50% for all groups. What do you need to understand? Group 11 plus equals crisis in statistics. O occupies only 23 to 27% of the population, but accounts for 30 to 45% of all divorces. O without this group, the average divorce rate would fall from 45% to 37%. The usefulness of this knowledge. This could completely change the social perception of marriage and social media. Now it is not a terrible game of roulette with all its material assets, but a more predictable bet. Because when we talk about 50% chances, we say this is the probability of a coin toss, that is, random in its pure form. But when we apply filtering and selection, we improve the statistics and the chances of winning. In this case, a strong marriage is considered a victory. Simply put, if the US were to ban marriage for morally irresponsible individuals 11 plus, popularly known as 304, at the state level, the national divorce rate would drop significantly to 37%, and this would raise the prestige of marriage on social media and for those men and women who are considering marriage. 6. Confirmation of the body count divorce connection in other regions of the world. Table: body count versus divorce rate in 10 European countries and Japan. Conclusion: correlation confirmed. 7. Confirmation of the body count divorce connection by U.S. state. Table: body count versus divorce in the United States, first 10 years. The mean shows the true scale of the problem. In California and New York, it is 30 to 40% higher than the median due to a small but radical group of women with 10-plus partners. They are responsible for spoiling the marriage statistics. Asterisk. Honorable mention in the top 7 most stable states in the USA, based on median body count of women aged 20 to 35 and divorce rate. Conclusion: correlation confirmed. 8. Additional circumstances that increase the risk of divorce. In Florida and Alabama, the cultural problem is greater than even the direct impact of body count. Why are these states exceptions? 1. Florida. O tourist sex cult. Section 60% of weddings are impulse, tourists plus alcohol. Section the average marriage lasts less than 5 years. O conclusion: body count is not even the main factor here. The culture of disposability of relationships destroys marriages before any statistics. 2. Alabama. O poverty plus early marriages. Section 35% of couples marry before the age of 21, the highest rate in the U.S. Section body count is low, 3.8, but marriages are falling apart due to financial stress. O conclusion: even a pure body count will not save if society is pathologically dysfunctional. First of all, I want to congratulate the women from the green category. This is especially important when you think about the emotional and psychological resilience a person must have to resist the main trends of the mainstream media towards the desacralization of intimate relationships between the sexes. 1. The numbers speak for themselves. Men who plan to have a stable family should look for a woman with a low body count. 2. The new couple should live in a region free from degenerative trends that destroy the family. This is beneficial not only for the couple themselves, but also for their children if they want a stable future for them too. 3. Young women need to know how much their sex discipline affects their body in a biological and psychological sense. If a woman at a young age has a dream of building a strong family, She should know and understand that the absence of sex discipline makes this dream almost impossible. Even if we ignore the fact that men are not interested in choosing such a woman as their wife. In just 10 years without sexual discipline, she will turn from a 20-year-old woman with a body count of 2 who dreams of having a family into a 30-year-old woman with a body count of 7 who is physically unable to tolerate a male partner for a long time, especially in the stressful circumstances of married life. Even if such a woman retains the memory of her youth fantasy of a strong family, she has already lost the qualities that could make it happen. Even if she tries to start a family, she will not choose a male partner, but a cohabitant whom she thinks she can tolerate. After her marital experience turns into nothing more than living in the same house with a person she doesn't love, doesn't appreciate, and isn't even attracted to, she will come to the obvious conclusion that this experiment needs to end. This will lead to a divorce. The final stage, she will go to TikTok to record her mega discovery that she made. It turns out marriage is a scam. She will just forget to inform her audience that over the years of lack of sexual discipline, she has turned into an aggressive person who is unable to form an emotional connection not only with her ex-husband, but with any man on this planet in general.